Hello everybody, my name is Rachel and welcome to my channel Kalanati. Today is all about Readathon TBRs. There are 3 month-long readathons happening in September, and I'm planning and participating in all of them to varying degrees. So I thought I would just throw together all of the books that I planned for all of these into one video, and we will see how overly ambitious I am attempting to be. So let's get into it. These 3 readathons are the Magical Readathon, which is created and hosted by G from Book Roast, Sci-Fi September, which has a whole bunch of hosts, I'm not actually sure who created that one, and then Space Opera September, which is created and hosted by Thomas from SFF 180. My main goal in September is to do a whole bunch of the prompts for the Magical Readathon and to read as much science fiction as possible, which is why I'm doing 2 other science fiction related readathons at the same time. Space Opera September is one that I'm going to be low-key doing. I'm actually not doing any of the prompts for that one, but I am going to try to just read some space opera during the month. So for the Magical Readathon, I need to complete at least 2 prompts that are like skill related, and then 1 each for background, province, and heritage for the character that I'm building. I don't know anything about character building. I am actually going to try to do a whole bunch of the skill prompts. I mean, you can do as many of them as you want, and then 1 or 2 for the other character categories. So for skills, the first one is the Novice Path Entrance to read a book with a map. I'm going to slightly cheat on this one. I'm going to be reading Conspirator by C.J. Cherryh, which is the 10th book in the Foreigner series. This is part of a long-running buddy read I'm doing with Kazan from Always Doing, and there are actually multiple maps associated with the Foreigner universe, but they are not always included in the later books for whatever reason. So I'm going to count this one because I'm going to like print out the map and have it with me, but it probably isn't going to be in the ebook that I'm reading, but it exists. The second one is Ashtorn Tree, a book that keeps tempting you, or top of your TBR. I could probably pick anything random in the moment, but for right now my choice is The Aleph by Jorge Luis Borges. This was recommended to me recently by Eduardo, I think. And I'm very, very curious. I've never read anything by Borges before. I think this is basically a short story collection, and I'm prepared to go into it blind and hopefully will really, really enjoy it. Next is The Mist of Solitude, read a standalone. Once again, I got a lot of options for this, but I'm trying to get more science fiction into a TBR for a fantasy readathon. So I'm going to read The Immunity Index by Sue Burke, which is one of my anticipated books of the year. The next one is Ruin of the Sky. Read a book featuring ghosts, a haunted house, or other supernatural elements. And for this one, I'm definitely going to read Spirits Abroad by Zen Cho. This is another short story collection, and based on the title alone, there are going to be spirits and ghosts and hauntings and the afterlife and all of that. But one of the things in here which will be a reread for me is The Terracotta Bride, and that one does basically happen in the afterlife, so it's totally going to count. Next is Obsidian Falls, read a thriller or a mystery book. For this, I've chosen a little witchy novella called Succulents and Spells by Andy C. Buchanan. This is one that I bought on a whim because I just was looking for cute fantasy supernatural mysteries, and I've read something else by Buchanan last year that I quite liked, so this should be a quick read and a lot of fun. Then there is Tower of Rumination, read a 5-star prediction, and for this I plan on reading Witness for the Dead by Catherine Addison. This is not a sequel to The Goblin Emperor, but I actually plan on rereading The Goblin Emperor first for another prompt here in just a second, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to love this, especially because I've seen a lot of other people who loved The Goblin Emperor, loved this and thought it was really lovely. And then the last skill prompt is Aurelium Academy Arc, book with a school setting. And for this one, I'm going to re-attempt Rupetta by Nike Solway. I've tried to read this book 3 times this year. It's going to be a really good book. I just keep putting it down for some reason. But as far as I can tell, the majority of this does actually take place in a school, or a good chunk of it does, so it'll be a perfect fit for this prompt if I get around to it. Now moving on to the other categories, next is background. I want my character, who's going to be a dwarf, to be a wilding, so my prompt is to read a book largely set in a forest or outside. I don't really know how to tell if a book counts for this until I've actually read it, but I think that a lot of The Day of the Triffids by John Wyndham will happen outside, so I'm going to try this one. And then for province, I'm kind of torn between my character being from Etheria or Carador, so I'm going to try both of these prompts. Etheria is to read a book that features Fae or Elven characters, and that is where I'm going to reread The Goblin Emperor, because the main character is a half-goblin, but I'm pretty sure all the other characters are basically elves, so that should count. And then the other one is Carador, read a book from an ongoing series, and for this I've chosen Star Nomad by Lindsay Broker, which I own on ebook. It is the beginning of a pretty long-running space opera series, so I think that should count for that. And then lastly, for heritage, like I said, I want my character to be a dwarf because science, and the prompt for this is to read a science fiction work. And for that I have another John Wyndham novel, The Chrysalids. So that is it for the Magical Readathon TBR. I really only need to read 5 books for that to meet the bare minimum requirements, but I do hope to read a lot more than that. Now for Science Fiction September, there is a whole bingo card with lots of prompts, and I've looked it over, but I haven't built a TBR around every single one of them, but I have chosen a few that I think I would like to do. So there's a non-space prompt, and I'll probably count Conspirator by C.J. Cherryh for that one. Global South, I think Caribbean authors count for this one, so I'm going to once again throw The Best of All Possible Worlds by Karen Lord onto a TBR. Will I read it this time? Wait and see. Fantasy elements. I do enjoy a good, like, science fantasy, but I don't have really any to hand. So I think I might count The Carpet Makers by Andreas Eschbach, because I believe that this is science fiction that first appears to be fantasy, and that's probably good enough. Like, that is some fantasy elements right there. Then there is Robot or AI Presence, and I'm hoping to get around to the next culture novel, Accession by Ian M. Banks. This is also a space opera, so it might count for some space opera September stuff. And then a contemporary science fiction. For that I have chosen a little novella, The Impossible Resurrection of Grief by Octavia Cade, because I think that this is either contemporary or very near future. And then Alien Presence, once again I could probably count Accession for that one because there are going to be aliens, but I have also picked out Something Coming Through by Paul McCauley, which once again has been on a previous Readathon TBR. This has like a whole alien species. I think they're called the Jackaroo. I really want to read this novel because I read a short story in this world years ago and I loved it. For popular or hyped, I may read Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers. It depends on whether I can get my hold from the library or if I break down and just buy a copy, because why didn't I pre-order that one? I don't know. And then another book that I want to finally get around to for the recommended prompt is Mainline by Deborah Taramis Christian, another one that's been on a previous TBR, previous Magical Readathon TBR, I think. This is a book that my friend Tara has recommended to me because it's one of her favorite books, I think, of like all time. So that is it for Sci-Fi September. Once again, a lot of things. We'll see how many of those I get through. And then lastly, we have Space Opera September. I'm probably not going to do any of the challenges for SOS this year just because of time constraints. It's all like book battles and buddy reads, and there's a solo challenge to read an entire duology or trilogy. I've come up kind of blank on all of these, and I already have buddy reads planned for September. I can't really squeeze in one more. So what I plan on doing is just reading some space opera kind of in the general theme of this readathon. So I do have some that I've already mentioned, like Star Nomad and Accession, that I want to read, but I've also requested an arc of Toddy Thompson's new space opera, which is coming out in October. It's called Far from the Light of Heaven, and I got it, so I'm going to do my best to read that in September and do a proper review of it for when it is published. I'm very excited about this one because, like, the premise of it, the fact that it is space opera, is completely up my alley. I think I've got a good chance of really loving that one. And those are all of my overly ambitious plans for September. Tune in later to see how badly I fail at this or how well I do, surprisingly. Let me know if you were also participating in any or all of these readathons. Please leave me a comment down below. Thank you so much for watching as always, and until next time, bye.